The 2026 World Cup with 48 teams is the biggest tournament football has ever held. And even with all that room, there's still a ridiculous number of world-class players watching the World Cup from home. So in this video, I'm not just naming a few of them. I'm picking 3 full 11s. The best players from countries that didn't qualify, the best 11 of the injured, and the best 11 of players who got left out by a manager, sometimes for tactical reasons, sometimes just out of pure stupidity. Let's start with the 11 of players whose countries didn't qualify. In goal, maybe the cruelest one of all, Jan Oblak. Slovenia's captain, one of the greatest goalkeepers of the last decade, never played a single minute of a World Cup. Not one. He's 33, but maybe he'll get one last chance in 2030 with 37. Now let me talk about Italy. 6 players in this 11 are Italian. 3 World Cups in a row missed. Italian football really is at rock bottom. In the back 4, you've got Di Lorenzo at right back, captain of Napoli. Then Gianluca Mancini and Bastoni in the middle. Federico Di Marco on the left. Then in midfield, Sandro Tonali from Newcastle and Barella, one of the best box-to-box midfielders in Europe for the last 5 years. The other central midfielder is the Hungary's captain Szoboszlai, captain of Liverpool and one of the greatest midfielders in this last season. On the wings, 2 of the most exciting attackers on the planet. Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, for me, the best player from the last Champions League season. Kvara plays for Georgia, a country that has never played a World Cup in the modern era and just barely missed their first one ever. And Lookman for Nigeria, the 2025 African Footballer of the Year. Nigeria lost the African playoff, and Lookman lost his shot with them. Up front for Poland, Robert Lewandowski. Over 600 career goals. A man who has never won a single World Cup knockout match in his life, and now he never will because this was his last chance. Well, and if you enjoy content like this, hit the like button and subscribe. My name is Alex, and this is Football Interest. We're just in the beginning here. Alright, let's keep going. Well, now the bench of players from nations that didn't qualify. Donnarumma sitting behind Oblak, European Championship winner with Italy and the Manchester City's goalkeeper. In the back 4, Matty Cash from Poland at right back, Tapsoba, Burkina Faso, at center back next to Hanko of Slovakia. Calafiori on the left, yep, another Italian. In midfield, Stanislav Lobotka, the brain of Slovakia and Napoli. Manuel Locatelli, the Juventus captain, and Milinkovic-Savic from Serbia. On the wings, another Italian, Zaccagni of Lazio and Brian Mbeumo of Cameroon. And up top, Victor Osimhen, African Footballer of the Year before Lookman, Galatasaray talisman. Italy, Poland, Denmark, Slovakia, Serbia, Chile, Cameroon, Nigeria, Romania, Ukraine. Even with 48 teams, we still had several traditional football nations miss out. Right, the second best 11, the injured team. This one hits differently, because it wasn't their country that let them down, it was their own body. In goal, Ter Stegen, Germany's #1 before the injuries. Then came the surgery, the loan to Girona, another muscle problem, and just like that, Nagelsmann moved on. Neuer came back, Ballman was there, Nubel was there, and Ter Stegen, somehow, was left watching another World Cup from the outside. Next, Eder Militao, listed here at right back. The Brazilian defender from Real Madrid ruptured the proximal tendon of his left hamstring less than 50 days before the tournament started. He's not back until October at the earliest. The center back pairing, Juan Foyth from Argentina and Matthijs de Ligt from the Netherlands. Foyth tore his left Achilles back in January against Real Madrid. That's the kind of injury that can keep you out for almost a year. And de Ligt 6 months trying to manage a chronic back problem without surgery, but it just didn't respond. So in the end, he had to go under the knife. The left back is Mohamed Hamdi of Egypt. ACL at the Africa Cup of Nations, carried off on a stretcher before halftime. The midfielders, Jordi Schouten from the Netherlands and Christoph Baumgartner from Austria. Schouten tore his ACL in April against Utrecht. Just a freak stretch while going for a loose ball, brutal. And Baumgartner tore a muscle in his right thigh during the warm-up before Austria's final friendly against Tunisia. The next morning, it was confirmed. Well, the wingers, Mitoma and Estevo. Haruo Mitoma of Japan, hamstring in Brighton's final weeks of the season, too late to recover. Then Estevao, 18 years old. The next big thing in Brazilian football, hamstring injury ruled out before the squad was even named. His first World Cup gone before it began. And up front, Rodrigo and Ekitike. Rodrigo, Real Madrid forward, 25 years old. tore his ACL and the meniscus in his right knee back in March against Getafe. He wrote on social media that it was one of the worst days of his life. Out. Well, Brazil might be the most damaged squad in this entire World Cup with 3 massive losses. Then Hugo Ekitike of France tore his Achilles in the Champions League against PSG in April. Devastating, because he had just broken into the France conversation for the first time, and the injury bench is almost a starting 11 of its own. In goal, Luis Malagón of Mexico, Achilles in March. The right back, Vanderson of Brazil. The center back pairing, Mohamed Salisu from Ghana and Cameron Carter-Vickers from the United States. Rodrigo Huescas from Mexico at left back. In midfield, Johnny Cardoso of the United States. Billy Gilmore from Scotland, knee in the final week of preparations. Days before the squad was finalized, brutal. And then, Fermin Lopez from Spain. 5th metatarsal in his right foot against Real Betis in May. Surgery. After a season of 13 goals and 17 assists at Barcelona. On the wings, Kudus from Ghana and Takumi Minamino from Japan. And up front as a false 9. Xavi Simons tore his ACL playing for Tottenham against Wolverhampton, carried off in the second half. And honorable mentions to Samu of Spain and Rodrigo Moura of Portugal, 2 of the brightest young attackers on the planet, both watching at home. Right, that's the bad luck section. Now we get to the part where it wasn't luck at all. It was a manager's decision. And in some cases, that decision still doesn't make any sense. The third best 11, the most controversial one, David De Gea in goal. He's only here because I really didn't have another option. Well, he never officially retired from Spain, but Luis de la Fuente has just never brought him back. A career over 150 caps long, ending without a World Cup in 2026. Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. Tuchel doesn't see him fitting his tactical system, and to leave Alexander-Arnold out. One of the best right backs in the world, one of the most technical fullbacks I've ever seen, and replace him with Newcastle's backup, not even Trippier. He didn't even go with Trippier. That's not tactical. That's just straight up stupidity. The center back pairing. De Vrij and Huijsen. Stefan de Vrij of Holland took a knock against Bologna in Inter's last league match. Light injury, according to the medical staff. But Koeman picked Van Dijk and Ake as the center back pair, with Van Heck and Van de Ven as backup, and Huijsen of Spain with a drop in form at Real Madrid in the last few months. De La Fuente preferred Laporte Cubarsi, Eric Garcia, and Marc Pubel. In my opinion, he's a much better center back than Eric Garcia and Pubel, but well, okay. And another Englishman, Lewis Hall on the left. Tuchel picked Jed Spence because Spence can play both sides, never mind that Hall had a brilliant season at Newcastle. For me, that's another stupid call. Now midfield. Eduardo Camavinga of France. Deschamps cited a difficult season with few minutes and recurring injuries at Real Madrid, and the traffic jam in the French midfield with Tchouaméni and Kanté, and Julian Brandt of Germany. Out of favor since Euro 2024 Dortmund inconsistency on his end, and the German pileup of attacking midfielders ahead, with Wirtz and Musiala running the show. Then an attacking midfield Cole Palmer. A season well below expectations at Chelsea, and Tuchel made one of the most talked about cuts of the entire tournament. Okay, Cole Palmer hasn't been playing well. Fair enough. But you don't leave that kind of talent out of the squad. He can come on in the second half and completely change a game. On the wings, Jared Bowen, the West Ham captain, didn't convince Tuchel tactically. And Phil Foden, same story as Palmer. A flat season at Manchester City, and he was out of Tuchel's plans. And up front, João Pedro of Brazil. Carlo Ancelotti publicly said João Pedro deserved it for his season in Europe, and then picked someone else anyway. Igor Thiago, Endrick, and the return of Neymar closed the door. 5 players in this 11 are English. That's how bad Tuchel's list is. Coaches wasting above-average talent has never made sense to me. And just like the other 2 11s, this one has a bench too. 11 more cuts. Lucas Chevalier in goal. Deschamps preferred Maignan, Bryce Samba, and Risser. Jeremy Frimpong of Holland left out at right back. Havard of France, once a starter, now off the list. Jan Bissek of Germany, despite a strong year at Inter. Rafael Guerreiro of Portugal on the left. João Paulina holding midfield for Portugal. In midfield, Christopher Nkunku of France never recovered the rhythm Deschamps wanted. And Paulo Dybala for Argentina, Scaloni's depth in attack is brutal, and Dybala has been on and off the squad for years now. Up front, Kingsley Coman, Karim Adeyemi, and Pedro of Flamengo. Koeman went from World Cup runner-up to outside the squad in 2 years. Adeyemi never broke through under Nagelsmann, and Pedro had one of the best seasons of his career in Brazil and still couldn't get Ancelotti's call. So that's 3 full 11s. 66 world-class and good players watching the World Cup from home. Which of these 3 11s actually wins this World Cup if you put them in the tournament right now? For me, it's the country of World Cup 11. Because when you have Lewandowski up top, Kvaratskhelia and Lookman on the wings, a great Italian midfield, and Oblak in goal, that team beats half the actual qualified squads. And which player will you miss the most? For me, it is Cole Palmer, Oblak, and Lewandowski. Well, and another question. Which manager's call do you still not understand? Was it Tuchel cutting Palmer? Was it Ancelotti leaving out João Pedro after publicly saying he deserved it? Was it De La Fuente passing on Huijsen? Well, tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, there's another one on the channel where we talk even more about the World Cup. Until next time.